2, and CONF, short for conference. So please and thank you. And of course, you never know when we'll be sharing some of your pictures as well on our page on LinkedIn and other platforms as well. So, without further ado, let's get this party started. We have got such an interesting panel up for you first. I am so excited about this topic. It just so fascinating to me. It is going to be about unraveling the mystery, showing you how to nurture your mind through your stomach. To keep this conversation going, we are going to invite Dr. Mohita Shrivastava, neuroscientist, founder and CEO of Cognitome LLC, as the moderator, and she will be bringing up our panel. Let's give her a big round of applause. And the title of this panel is Decoding the Gut Brain Axis, Investigating the Link Between Diet, Microbiome, and Mental Well Being.
Anna, Laurie,
Morning.
good morning.
Good morning.
A very good morning to all of you.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. And today, in day three of the Health 2.0 conference, uh, we would like to begin the first panel discussion of the day on the topic gut brain axis, investigating the link between diet, microbiome, and the mental well being. So, I would like to welcome all the panelists on the stage. And good morning, and I welcome you all. And I will give you 1 quick minute to each one of you for a quick introduction about yourselves.
Okay, my name is Ana Penido, and I'm the CEO and founder of a nonprofit called Home Mind Symphony. And this nonprofit, the goal and the mission is to open the first supportive home model for people with serious mental illness, especially schizophrenia. And I started this because I have two sons with schizophrenia, and one of them is totally recovered after 5 years of changing his diet. But the second one, he has a different metabolism, which we'll talk about here, and he's called treatment resistant. And there's a lot of people like him who do not have a place to go, even after they go to hospitals, institutions, because the medication doesn't work quite well. And so my idea is to open this home so we can have a nutrition that helps them improve. And there are now cutting edge studies about that, that nutrition really helps revert serious mental illness. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I am Lori Ellington, and I am the CEO and founder of Ancient Science Incorporated. And what I do is I integrate ancestral wisdom and practices from our ancients with modern science, such as neurobiology, psychoneuroimmunology, mind body research, quantum physics, flow states of consciousness, and things like that, nutrition as well, and functional medicine. And I take what I call a neurosomatic approach to helping people heal, self master, and really just get on a path of human optimization. And what I mean by neurosomatic, it's a network or systems approach. So it's mind, body, brain, seeing everything as a unit versus parts. We'll be talking a little bit about that today. Happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Laurie.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Dr. Stephanie Bathurst. I'm the CEO and founder of Bathurst Family Therapy, which is a psychosexual private practice out in Oahu, Hawaii. Our specialties are human psychology, interpersonal dynamics, and I'm also a certified integrative medicine specialist for mental health. So, any kind of holistic and comprehensive treatment plans for anxiety, depression, ADHD, PMDD, bipolar disorder. Great to be here. Thank you.
Morning, everyone. Janae Sasso, CEO and founder of Senior Runs. We are a web and mobile platform that connects aging adults to health aides that provide chronic care management, such as transportation, kind of an all inclusive care model to drive positive health outcomes. And, when it comes to caring for seniors, they are the most vulnerable population. So when it comes to gut health, we really need to make that a focal point.
Hi, everyone. My name is Parmjeet Kaur. I will be doing a test on the pronunciation of my name after this. Um, I am an entrepreneur, but my background is I'm a certified global project manager and a certified Scrum Master. I've worked in health tech for the last 20 plus years, and I worked with a lot of government agencies, specifically in the Medicaid space. So again, I'm a government contractor. But moreover, a little bit about me and why I find myself here on this panel. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 24 years old. And I have seen firsthand how diet is pivotal in the way we manage disease and uh, just the way we are having an interactive approach to health. I was also published in a book called Beating Multiple Sclerosis, and Beating Multiple Sclerosis is a culmination of patient stories, individuals who have used diet and exercise rather than traditional medicine to basically heal themselves of MS. And in these stories, we have found that based on diet, we can sometimes even shrink. So, if anyone's familiar with multiple sclerosis, uh, the way it materializes is typically patients have lesions both in their brain as well as on their spine. And we have found that through diet, we can actually decrease these lesions in the brain. And a lot of patients have been able to heal themselves without needing to take traditional medication. So thank you, everyone. A pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you all for your introductions. And myself, I'm Dr. Mohita Shrivastava, and I'm a neuroscientist by profession, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Cognitum Program. This program aims to uh, uh, provide cognitive training, cognitive rehabilitation, and cognitive remediation therapies to the patients of anxiety, depression, PTSD, TBI, and stroke. So, well, this is all about me. And without any further delay, I would like to begin this panel discussion on a very interesting topic, decoding the gut brain axis. So, as we all know, that gut-brain axis has become a burgeoning field, of research and shedding the light into this, and the connection between the brain and gut is actually a very important topic to discuss about. And this encompasses various fields like neuroscience, research in the field of neuroscience, research in the field of psychology, gastroenterology, and nutrition and psychology. So, aiming to understand how these seemingly different branches or entirely different branches and systems interact and influence each other. So, to discuss further, let's begin our discussion by understanding the very common concept. What do we understand by the term gut brain axis? Nowadays, many healthcare professionals as well as the researchers are using this term very frequently, gut brain axis. So, for a commoner, and this question goes to Anna, Laurie, and Stephanie, 2 minutes each. If you can please explain to our great audience, what do we understand by this term gut brain axis?
Okay, I'll start because that's the what I do is teach to parents and families and sometimes peers, people with serious mental illness, and you have to use a language that they understand. And so I even have pictures. We don't see our gut, but we have billions of living beings in our guts, way more than the universe stars. And you have the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. And whatever you feed it through food is what the bacteria like or dislike to eat. And a big one is sugar, right? So the bad bacteria loves sugar. So the more sugary or carbs that you eat, that population is going to grow. If that population grows, the other good population is going to be in balance. So that imbalance will send signals to your brain through the vagus nerve, and you will feel different. And sometimes people don't realize, well, I'm feeling irritable or I'm feeling depressed or because of something you ate and you have been eating. It's not one thing of a day, it's more like everything you eat throughout your life, because every day you put something in your mouth, it makes a difference. And the good bacteria likes what? They like the fermented foods, they like vegetables, and if you give them the right balance, then you start creating peace in your gut, and that peace will go back to your brain.
Lovely. Yeah. So, when we were forming in utero, in the embryo, we started out as one tissue. And then that tissue, as we developed, it split off. One end went to the brain that we call in the skull, and the other, the gut. And this enteric nervous system developed, which is this mesh like web of brain cells. It's just a brain as well. So it's not like we call it the gut, but it's really a brain. It's got 500 million neurons, brain cells in it, and it can override what the cranial brain decides to do. So these are not separate. And there's this kind of fiber optic bidirectional cord, long as the 10th cranial nerve comes out of the brainstem, that connects these two brains together to really be one. So maybe you're familiar with the limbic system that manages a lot of our emotional responses, right? And then this prefrontal cortex that really separates us from lower primates, allows us to be able to create this conference that we're doing, right? So the gut has connections, deep connections to those regions, particularly that limbic system. Dr. Emmerin Mayer, who's a pioneer in the gut brain axis at UCLA, says that the gut is actually just really an extension of the limbic system. And that's regulating your mood, your emotional responses, your ability to focus, to be able to respond in an email in a way that you feel confident about, to write a report, have a conversation with your child, whatever it might be, sleep, right? So I'll talk a little bit more about that vagus nerve. But I think in a nutshell, we just need to see that these aren't separate worlds. They were one tissue, they just split off, they're totally connected through a cord, and the bloodstream as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, I think when we go back to like middle school anatomy class, right, we think about how we learned about the organs of the body and how each one of them was depicted visually in very separate ways. Bless you. And what we're wanting to help teach our clients is the interconnectedness of every single thing in your body, right? To help them understand that there are fascia lines, there are byways of communications neurally that are connecting every single thing, every single system in your body, particularly the brain and the gut, right? And we break it down to them and help them understand that 80% of all serotonin and 70% of your entire immune system is actually derived from your gut and the health or lack thereof of that gut. So just providing like the core base knowledge that we have in the last decade of research that hasn't yet infiltrated the rest of public awareness so that we can start thinking about food as medicine again because it truly truly is, right? And without that knowledge, without that buy-in, people cannot make educated and good decisions for themselves about what they're ingesting into their body and how that directly correlates with mental health.
Thank you, Anna, Laurie, and Stephanie, for such a nice uh, understanding, giving us the nice understanding of the term gut brain axis. Now, and the other question goes to Anna. Anna, how do you think that prolonged use of antipsychotics or anxiolytics or antidepressants, chronic use of prolonged use of these drugs, as well as the nutritional deficiencies or specific diet plans like keto diet, low carb diet, intermittent fasting, you know, all these have a significant impact on the functioning of gut microbiota? And how does it help in the management of mental illnesses?
Wow. Okay. That itself is a whole
Loaded
talk,
question.
but we'll try to narrow to as quick as I can explain. It was very interesting for me having two sons to see that coming from the same genes, the same family, being raised on the same foods affects people in different ways. And so you kind of question why, right? So when my oldest son developed schizophrenia and psychosis and depression, um, I worked first with him with getting whole foods through collaboration with orthomolecular psychiatrist, and so we raised a lot of the vitamin deficiencies that generally um, studies show that people with schizophrenia has, but also changing your dietary habits. And we not only the diet, but a lot of other, because it's like a complex situation. You have the therapy, the family, the support. You have to have all of these, the meditation, the practice. But in 4 years, my son achieved stability, and he's well today on a vegan diet. That's his option, and no sugar, no dairy, no soy, no allergens, So it's like he's very careful and very sensitive about what he eats, but mostly he chose to be vegan. And that works for him because today he's on a minimum dose of antipsychotic. I mean, if you guys are doctors and he's like on 0.25 milligrams of risperidone. It's just like so little, it's less than a child's dose. Um, my other son, I tried to apply what the orthomolecular said to my other son, and it did not work. I didn't see the difference. So my son has been in an institution for 10 years, unfortunately, because he's treatment resistant. Like they tried several different antipsychotics. And what happens in these institutions is that they serve processed food, and you cannot even bring some vitamins. And I've been fighting along to get at least something. And so I managed to get him to have probiotics, which really helps to counterbalance the processed food. Um, but over these years, my son, because of the antipsychotic he's been taking, Olanzapine, um, natural name is Zyprexa, um, he has developed fatty liver disease. And so when he did this, I panicked because I says my son's going to die from cirrhosis instead of mental illness, and or so I says, how can we revert this? So I consulted a clinician, a nutritional clinician, and she says, well, if you start him on a low carb, low sugar diet, you could have good results. And exercise. I says, exercise impossible. He's inside a locked facility with 90 people and just a cement courtyard. And she said, okay, if the institution doesn't accept that diet, then come back here. I'll give you a diabetes diet because they will take that. But the place where he is right now is open to listening to families. So I was lucky that they implemented the low carb diet. And I was astounded because I had to have my son on board too. That's a part of education that is very important. You just don't force things because everybody else is eating the gluten, everybody else is eating the carbs. How you get somebody to choose not to eat that? And so I showed him videos of Dr. Berg on YouTube, very simple, showing how it was inside and what was happening to his liver. He got it. And I said, you need to be on board of this if you want to live and if you want to go after your dreams. And he says, okay, mom, I'm going to do that. And so he was in agreement to do the low carb diet. In just 5 months, my son lost 30 pounds. And the doctors were astonished when they did all the tests again because the fatty liver disease disappeared. So this is something that we really need to think carefully, because also another thing that's important to add here, I went to the psychiatrist and I asked, you know what, this medication, Olanzapine, is being said here on the prescription that it says it develops side effects of high triglycerides that can affect your liver. Can you change to something else? So he decided to shift it and take that one out and try clozapine, which is the last of the drugs that they use on the scale for psychiatry because it affects your blood counts. But I said, let's go for that. And my son is doing the best he's ever done with this change of antipsychotic together with the low carb, low sugar diet.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Anna, for sharing your personal experience. And now my next question goes to Laurie. Laurie, can alterations in the gut microbiome lead to neurochemical imbalances like of serotonin, GABA, or vagal tone disturbances, as implicated in various psychiatric or mental illnesses? And how do these mechanisms operate within the gut brain axis?
Yeah, yeah. So the vagus nerve, who's familiar with that? Heard of it? Yeah, some of you have. The longest bundle of nerves really in the human body comes out of the brainstem. It's the 10th cranial nerve. It's two kind of cords. Vagus, think vagabond in Greek. That's the derivative from that word. It roams and meanders. It connects up the three brains that you have. You have three. You have one in the skull, and you've got a brain in the heart. That's the cardiac nervous system, and there is a brain in there. It thinks and feels and produces neurotransmitters, right? And then you have another brain. What?
Enteric nervous.
And then the enteric nervous system. That's right. And it connects those three up. So it's this super highway that's bidirectional. Here's what's really interesting and unique about the vagus. It's a data collector. It's modulating inflammation. It's also who delivers the pharmaceuticals to the brain. So what happens in the vagus in your body doesn't stay in the vagus and in your body. It goes everywhere throughout the whole mind body brain network because the vagus innervates all of the visceral organs. And whenever we're in connection, we're eating a healthy diet, we're moving, we're sleeping, we're able to regulate our breath and come out of those 20 beats or 20 breaths per minute, right? How we're breathing, what we're thinking, what we're paying attention to. That tones, exercises the vagus and keeps the tonality good. But when we're in, there's a branch of the autonomic nervous system that's like your gas pedal, which is the sympathetic branch, which we're in a lot. That does not, the vagus nerve does not power through the sympathetic branch. So we lose its tone. Okay, the gut, the microbiota in your gut produce your pharmacy. The microbiota in your gut produce vitamins, produce antibiotics, produce all these called metabolites, 500,000 metabolites. That's the pharmacy that you have inside of you. And like the serotonin, 90% of that serotonin is produced in your gut, your mood regulator. Your dopamine, 50% is produced in your gut, right? That's a motivation to make a change in your life, right? If you don't have the bacteria in your gut because of dysbiosis, which is Anna was talking about, the bacteria that does the conversion, that converts your chicken to the serotonin, that's where it's happening, right? Then you don't have any of that to go up through the vagus. And then that's going to cause problems with the tonality of the vagus as well by firing the stress response, the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, right? So we got all this cortisol, that's impacting your gut bacteria as well, killing off some of the positive ones that are creating your pharmacy for you, right? We're not even getting, I think maybe Stephanie's going to talk about leaky gut a little bit, but this is upregulating an inflammatory response. Well, your vagus is your anti inflammatory nerve. It's producing acetylcholine that keeps things chill, keeps you relaxed, keeps your heart rate down, and all of that, right? So if you're losing that vagal tone because of a dysbiosis or you're under a stress response, right? Most of the signals are actually coming from the body to the brain. So for approximately every 9 bits of communication between the brain and the gut by way of the vagus is coming from the body and the gut up to the brain. So the brain is not, we think it's the command center, but it's actually gathering data from the body. And it's about 90% coming up from the body, which is why you can move and change your mood, right? But it's really important to pay attention to vagal tone, taking care of that vagus nerve, and of course, managing the composition of the microbiota through diet, stress, and things like that.
Thank you, Laurie.
Yeah.
And Stephanie, question goes to you. What role does systemic inflammation or gut permeability play in the gut-brain axis, and how does this dysregulation of immune function contributes to mental health disturbances like anxiety, depression, or OCD?
Thank you. Yeah. So we all know that mental health disorders are largely epigenetic, right? There are some populations that are more vulnerable to the onset because of genetic predisposition or gene mutations like the MTHFR mutation, right? Um, Science tells us that about 40% of major depressive disorder is due to the underlying genetics of that, right? 65% for bipolar disorder. That's a huge percent of impact or activation onset from environmental stressors, right? These are things like the chemicals that we interact with on a daily basis, the VPA, phthalates, parabens, xenoestrogens, glyphosate in particular, which is linked causally to depression. And glyphosate is it's a pesticide. It's an ingredient to pesticide on agricultural products. Um, so that was chemicals to the food that we ingest, and I think you've both talked really nicely about like what activates that inflammation food wise, right? Soy, dairy, gluten, alcohol, caffeine, all of these things that we're wanting to really reduce because we've changed the chemical compounds of food so significantly that our body no longer can actually recognize it as food, and so it causes this inflammatory response in an attempt to protect itself. But what ends up happening in a state of inflammation, prolonged inflammation in the gut, is that the lining of the stomach starts to become permeable. It starts to separate. When that separation happens, the parasites and the gut bugs in your stomach start to slip through, get into your bloodstream, make it up to these other microbiomes within your body. And all of them are uniquely different in what bugs they house and how they can accommodate those. So when we get the microbiome gut bugs into our brain microbiome, it causes leaky brain, right? This is a source of environmentally triggered depression and anxiety, right? So we're really wanting to include in our treatment protocols with our clients nutrition. We know vitamin D, vitamin B, magnesium, zinc, iodine, these are all deficiencies, nutritional deficiencies that are linked to mental health instability. And so that has to be a really important proponent, or I'm sorry, component to our treatment protocols, in addition to some of the more traditional psychotherapeutic or meditative movement uh, inclusions, right? So yeah, I think there's so much that we can do to have a holistic process to heal mental health and deactivate those genes if a client does have them.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Jane, do you think that shaping the development and function of the gut microbiome, utilizing personalized intervention approaches such as microbiome profiling or dietary interventions, uh, or use of chronic medications, somehow impact overall quality of life across the various population and especially among the geriatric population?
Yes, great question. Um, I think the common theme, as I have sat through all the different panels, is that we can all agree that personalized and individualized care is crucial for positive health outcomes, right? So we can't treat everybody the same. And I know we have over 1,000 species of bacteria in the gut, and we're still exploring which bacteria supports and optimizes mental health. And I know that I'm glad to know that that is something that is being studied, because that's going to be important for the microbiome profiling of patients and the dietary interventions that are implemented. And so when it comes to seniors, they are a very vulnerable population, because as you age, your systems and body functions slow down. That's just par for the course. And so we know that, but I think that the challenge has been, from what I have seen with caring for our clients, is the ageism, the discounting that this is just old age, and yeah, you're depressed, or you have anxiety, or you have acid reflux, or whatever the case may be. And so when physicians do kind of get their profile, a lot of it is not being tracked back to the gut. it's being discounted as just getting older. Even happened to me at when I turned 40, and the doctors like flipped the page, and he had all of these questions. He added like a ton of additional questions, and one of them was, "Do you have acid reflux?" At that time, I did, and but I was curious. I mean, I've been studying gut and brain health for years, so I just wanted to know what his perspective was. And I asked, "Why did you ask me that question at 40? What happens at 40 that you ask that question?" Because I mean, when my children were babies, like you said, I'm looking at their digestive system, right? I'm not just assuming that it's just going to naturally, do what it's supposed to do. And he just simply said, "Oh, this is just things that happen when you get older." And that was kind of the extent. And if I had not, if I had said I had some symptoms, I'm curious as to what his response would have been. And the reality is that 25% of older adults, 65 and older, have mental illness and anxiety and depression. And we see it all the time in our organization when we're caring for them. And we really need to be more proactive. I find it very odd that, we will screen for high blood pressure. We will screen for diabetes. We will screen for cancer. But nobody ever talks about the gut health. And when they do talk about diet, it's always give them boost. Give them, what's the other one? Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's always a nutritional drink to try to get them to gain weight or what have you, which typically constipates them. So, or there's some antacid that they're going to give them, which we know sometimes that can actually exacerbate the problem. So, I just think that we need to make gut health profiling a key part of how we screen for disease. And if a physician notices, or a clinician or anybody notices a mental health issue with a geriatric patient, we need not discount it. We should take a deeper dive and do our best to try to uncover what the real issue is. Because as our systems and functions slow down, obviously nutrient absorption is going to be impacted by that. And so, and when we work with a lot of seniors, they're isolated. So sometimes they can't eat properly because they can't get access to the nutritional foods that they do need, or they don't even have the cognitive function to make the decisions to eat make a better food choice. So there's a lot of complexity in serving seniors, a lot of social determinants of health that arise, and that is something that my company has really worked hard to try to bring to the attention and bring to light of the healthcare community.
Well, I think there's also, and because everything that you said is spot on, I think there are a lot of underlying conditions that cause mental health instability that compounds over time the longer that you have it in your system, like heavy metal or candida overabundance, which is linked to like ADHD, right? There's a lot that builds in your cells and in your systems that your body cannot organically excrete. And as we age, this vulnerable population is so underserved because those things are not tested. They're not even talked about, but they're very much impacting mental health stability for this particular population.
Exactly,
Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you. Pam, the question goes to you. How can interdisciplinary collaboration between researchers in nutrition, neuroscience, psychiatry, gastroenterology, psychology, you know, advance our understanding of the gut-brain axis and facilitate the development of innovative interventions?
Sure, absolutely. So I think the number one, the integration of these different modalities, these different levels of expertise from all these different individuals in their respective fields, I think that can lead to innovation in technology in solving the very complex gut-brain axis. It's funny, and I don't mean to bring my personal story into this, but I had a deep conversation with my neurologist, and I talked to him about some changes that I had made in my diet and how those changes in my diet were positively impacting me. But unfortunately, that was just not a conversation that he was willing to have. And that is because that is not what he had studied. And this is not to say, and I do want to preface all this by saying there's absolutely a place for medicine and traditional medicine. I myself have had a chemotherapy-based stem cell transplant, which essentially, in addition to my diet, healed me, and I've been in remission for 7 years. But I think thank you, thank you, thank you. But I think the integration of these different modalities and the expertise from these different individuals in their respective fields, these subject matter experts, I think they can lead to, again, innovation, because this is such a complex subject that I think a lot of folks don't understand. And specifically, I'm going to say here in the West, I think in a lot of other countries, right, my family's from India. I think in a lot of countries like India, I think we've long understood the impact of diet on our brains. But I think although we are so advanced here in the United States, I think we still have a lot of catching up to do. And I talk about this a lot also. There are a lot of foods. So I'm born in the UK, as you can tell from my very deep British accent. um, there are a lot of foods that are allowed here, a lot of processed foods that are allowed here, a lot of ingredients that are allowed here in the United States, which are not allowed in Europe, which are whenever I visit England and I go to a grocery store in England, I'm always amazed. It's remarkable the differences in some of the packaging, the processed, even their processed food, and it's actually alarming. So I think if we brought some of these, again, multiple modalities together, they could develop a more integrated approach, and I think it would just help us to, again, better understand the gut-brain axis. I also wanted to comment. I think somebody earlier said something about mental health and the effect of vitamins and supplementation and food on mental health. Again, just sharing a personal experience. So I have really bad anxiety. That's actually a MS symptom. And I think even for someone who doesn't have MS, I think a lot of us deal with anxiety. Um, and so I went to my PCP, my primary care provider, and I asked him for something because the anxiety, and I was also dealing with depression, it was unfortunately causing my IBS to accelerate. And I was having trouble even leaving the house because immediately I would start thinking, okay, I hope I can get to my destination. Okay, is my IBS going to act up? And so he put me on an antidepressant. That was his go-to. And I was on the antidepressant just for 2 days, and I realized it made me feel horrible. And again, not to say that there isn't a place for antidepressants. They work miracles for so many people. But I started looking into what else can I incorporate to relieve me of my anxiety and some of the symptoms that I'm experiencing. And I learned that a diet rich in magnesium works wonders for anxiety. And again, I had no idea. And so anyway, I switched to a magnesium and B12 rich diet, and all of a sudden, while not completely eradicated, my anxiety decreased monumentally. So, all that to say, yes, I think we need to have an interconnected, collaborative approach to maybe not solving, but really working on this understanding of the complex understanding of the gut-brain axis.
Thank you, ma'am. So, with this, we have come to an end of our panel discussion. And just one key takeaways, in one or two lines for our audience from each one of you, very quickly.
Okay. I think it's about your uh, culture and your education and what you are open to do to change your life because we eat every day. That's it goes back to this. It's a practice that you're doing unconscious or you can do it conscious. And my take is like first thing, change to whole foods, fresh foods, more vegetables on your plate, especially the dark leaf vegetables which are left behind. These will change your biochemistry. I also just want to say that I'm doing a course in May, and it's going to be online course so everybody can do it. And it's a course teaching you the foods that make you smile, and remove anxiety, depression, and psychosis. Is a preventive and a course for recovery. And all of us have somebody that needs this in the family or friends that we know. So please take a flyer from me later. I'm teaching this with my son who has recovered. So it is really inspiring for people who are going through recovery to hear from somebody who's doing well how diet became the major focus of their lives.
Thank you. Laurie?
Yeah, so you host a rainforest inside of you, and that rainforest produces pretty much everything that you need to be well. Vitamins, like the or the neurochemicals to take care of your mood, to manage your inflammatory levels, which is the lies at the heart of all chronic illnesses, right? And now we know depression and anxiety. And so take care of that rainforest inside of you. You are an ecosystem. And realize that that is impacting every decision that you make, how you sleep, how you rest, how you focus, your health span, your lifespan. It's all interconnected. So respect this ecosystem that you have inside of you. And so we've talked about the food, but pay attention to movement. Take some deep breaths, social connection. Go outside and play in the dirt and don't wash your hands immediately. It actually increases diversity of your microbiota,
And
right?
let the dog lick your
Yeah, let
hand.
the dog lick your hand. We're over hygienated. So um, just pay attention and be mindful of this powerful ecosystem and rainforest that you have inside of you. And take care of your vagus nerve. And I just mentioned some ways to do that with, resting and movement. And beware of the antibiotics and the ibuprofen and things like that. Those are really poking holes and causing some problems with our gut permeability and inflammatory levels. So,
Yes, they are.
yeah.
I know that all of us have many different clients. I know that some of mine don't always live in an area or have the financial means to access good food, right? That's a real legitimate concern. And so we can talk all day, and I love talking all day about good food and what specific foods give you these nutrients. But at the end of the day, if our clients don't have means to access them, it doesn't help them, right? So at the very least, helping them get access to third-party tested nutraceuticals specifically for methylated B complex vitamins, for omega-3s, just like the very core basics, trace minerals that they can drop into whatever drink they're drinking throughout that day. Like if you were to just include those three core things for the majority of clients, I promise you, you will see drastic improvements in mental health, even if they can't implement all the other things that we're talking about today.
Start somewhere.
My,
Yeah.
my my last words is just to encourage you to advocate for yourself and advocate for others. When you're in, I think if we can continue to have these conversations and draw attention to the importance of gut health, we can see some change with people's approach to it. Some people are, lean mostly traditional, then you have holistic. I would like to see more folks in the healthcare community kind of come somewhere in the middle ground. But I think a lot of that, and my challenge in my business and just having these conversations, is just that we have to have more people having them. So advocate for yourself. If something's going on in your body and the medication isn't working, or you are looking for a more natural way to deal with it, don't be afraid to bring that up. And if you work in a healthcare setting where there's some, in geriatric care or what have you, speak up and say, you know what, you're serving these people this type of food. Is there a way we can get them an apple? Can we chop it up? What can we do to enhance the quality of their diet when they are in our institutions? Because a lot of times we just kind of do our job because we're tired, but we're not really paying attention, and therefore we don't have good, healthy, quality conversations.
So, great points from all of my fellow panelists. I couldn't agree more. The takeaway for me, and I think of a few folks have said it, I think which validates what I've always believed, is there is no one size fits all solution for anyone. I think what will work for one individual may not work for another. And I think, as Anne was saying earlier, whereas one of her sons changed his diet and the impact was positive and tremendous on him, it wasn't the same necessarily for her other son. I think there is no one size fits all approach, but the overwhelming consensus is that that a healthy diet rich in whole foods, potentially supplements if you need them, I think is going to be the best approach. But again, there is no one size fits all solution. What works for one individual may not work for another, but again, a diet rich in nutrients, whole foods, less processed foods. And I actually feel like a hypocrite as I say this because my diet is not the best always, but I'm a work in progress. I think we all are.
Yes.
But yes, that is my takeaway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Fantastic. Another round of applause for these ladies, our moderator, our panelists. That was so insightful. Thank you. Thank you. Now, coming up next is our keynote on the topic empowering